There was a time when just hearing the name John D. Rockefeller made people tremble, not just because he was the world's first billionaire, but because he played the game of power like no one else in history. He controlled the oil industry, manipulated governments, crushed competitors, and engineered secret deals so ruthless that they sparked riots in the streets. But before he built an empire so powerful that even US presidents feared him, Rockefeller was just a poor kid with a scammer father and a dream so big it would shake the world. His rise to power is filled with betrayal, controversy, and shocking secrets that history books often leave out. And what happened when the government finally tried to stop him? It only made him richer. But before we get there, let's go back to the beginning. John D. Rockefeller wasn't just born into poverty, he was born into chaos. His father, William "Devil Bill" Rockefeller, was a man no one trusted. To some, he was a traveling salesman. To others, he was a doctor named William Livingston. And to two different women in two different towns, he was a husband, living a double life with two families who had no idea the other existed. Bill was a scam artist who disappeared for months, only to return in a fancy carriage and shower John and his siblings with gifts. Then, just as quickly, he'd vanish again, leaving them cold and starving. John learned two lessons from his father. Money equals power. You either control the game or you get played. At just 16, he had no choice but to drop out of school and start making money. And that's when his obsession with wealth began. John's first job, bookkeeping, sounds boring until you realize that it gave him a front row seat to how businesses made money and how they lost it. He studied every transaction, every contract, every weak point. And when he finally started his own business in produce, he didn't just want to make money, he wanted to dominate. Then he saw the future. Oil. It was dirty, it was risky, but it was profitable. So, while others gambled on drilling, Rockefeller focused on refining, turning crude oil into usable fuel. And that's where his first power move came in. He manipulated railroads into giving him secret discounts, meaning his competitors paid more to transport oil than he did. He was making more money than them before they even made a sale. And that was just the beginning. Imagine a game where the rules are rigged so only one player can win. That's exactly how John D. Rockefeller played business. At first, Standard Oil was just another refining company, but Rockefeller wasn't satisfied with competing. He wanted complete control. He started by buying up smaller refineries, offering them deals that sounded too good to refuse. Many sold out, thinking they were making a smart business move. They had no idea Rockefeller was systematically eliminating all competition, but some refinery owners refused to sell. That's when Rockefeller turned ruthless. He launched price wars, slashing Standard Oil's prices so low that no competitor could survive. Imagine this: you own a small oil company. Suddenly, Standard Oil drops their prices to half of yours. Customers leave you. You're bleeding money. If you match their prices, you'll go bankrupt. If you don't, you'll still go bankrupt. You have no way out. Meanwhile, Rockefeller had secret railroad deals, meaning his shipping costs were much lower than yours. Even if you somehow survived the price war, he had another trick up his sleeve. He controlled the supply chain. He would buy up all the barrels, all the pipelines, all the railways. Suddenly, you couldn't even get your oil to market. One by one, businesses collapsed. And when they did, Rockefeller bought them out for pennies. The result? Within a few years, Rockefeller controlled 90% of the entire oil industry. He didn't just sell oil, he decided the price of it. And with that power, he became untouchable. But the problem with being at the top, everyone below you wants to take you down. Rockefeller had built an empire so powerful, it was untouchable, or so he thought. By the early 1900s, the public had turned against him. People were furious over rising oil prices, backroom deals, and the brutal way he crushed competition. And then came Ida Tarbell, a journalist with a personal vendetta. Her father had once owned an oil company. Rockefeller destroyed it. For 2 years, she investigated every secret Standard Oil tried to keep hidden. What she found? Bribed politicians who helped him get away with the monopoly tactics, railroad contracts that gave him unfair advantages, a system of crushing competitors so mercilessly they had no choice but to sell or die. The public exploded with rage. Protests, riots, and political pressure forced the government to act, and that's when President Theodore Roosevelt made Rockefeller his biggest target. Roosevelt had built his reputation as a trust buster, a man who would take down the corrupt monopolies running America. But Rockefeller, he was the biggest of them all. So Roosevelt launched the largest lawsuit in US history. The case against Standard Oil dragged on for years. Rockefeller barely spoke to the press. He stayed silent while the world turned against him. And then, after years of investigation, the government finally delivered its verdict. But what happened next? No one expected it. The US government forced Standard Oil to break into 34 separate companies. But here's the thing. Rockefeller still owned stock in all of them. When they split apart, their total values skyrocketed. Investors poured in, sending Rockefeller's wealth to insane new levels. Instead of destroying him, the government's attack made him even richer. John D. Rockefeller became the world's first billionaire, and his final move, not what anyone expected. With more money than he could ever spend, Rockefeller turned to philanthropy. He gave away over $500 million funding universities like the University of Chicago, medical research, helping to cure diseases, global charities. He spent the last years of his life fixing a world he had once controlled, and yet, even today, his legacy is a paradox. Was Rockefeller a genius, or was he the most dangerous man in history? And more importantly, are today's billionaires doing the exact same thing? Rockefeller was feared, hated, respected, admired, loved. He rewrote the rules of business and then broke them all. For decades, he was the ultimate puppet master, controlling entire industries from behind the curtain. He dictated oil prices, influenced governments, and crushed those who stood in his way. And yet, in his later years, he transformed into the world's greatest philanthropist, giving away hundreds of millions to medicine, education, and the arts. So, which Rockefeller was real, the ruthless corporate overlord who dominated industries with an iron grip, or the generous billionaire who helped eradicate diseases and fund universities? Some say he was a necessary evil, that his empire created jobs, fueled innovation, and shaped the modern economy. Others say he was the ultimate villain, a man who built his fortune by crushing competition, rigging the system, and holding the world hostage to his wealth. But perhaps the real truth lies somewhere in between, because whether you see him as a genius or a tyrant, there is one thing no one can deny. There was only ever one, John D. Rockefeller, and the world has never seen another like him since. If you enjoyed this short documentary, then make sure to like and subscribe for the best short documentaries for you to binge.